Hello everybody, I'm Andy, and we are going through Matthew chapter 16 today. This is kind of a difficult chapter. There's a lot in it, and there's also a lot of controversy in it. So it starts right after Jesus fed 4,000 people, and after he had fed 4,000 people, he went across the Sea of Galilee, and there was a bunch of Pharisees and Sadducees on the other side. It's kind of interesting that there was both Pharisees and Sadducees, because they didn't really get along, but they did unite under the idea that they didn't like Jesus. So they get together, and they're all biblical scholars. That's important to note. So Jesus speaks to them, and they say, we want to see a sign. They were probably thinking, we heard you just fed 4,000 men and maybe another 4,000 women and children, and we want to see this sign. And Jesus tells them, you are able to look at the weather, and you're able to deduce what the weather is going to be like. It sounds like they had that expression that many of you have probably heard, where they say, red sky at night, sailors delight, and red sky at morning, sailors take warning. That's a way that they can read the weather. And he says, but you're not able to read the signs of the times. They're asking for a sign, but he's like, just look around and see what's happening in the world right now. You as biblical scholars should be able to figure out the signs all by yourself. Essentially, he's saying, I'm the sign. The Bible's the sign. You can look at and see what the Bible is saying about me, and you can figure that out. He doesn't say all that, but what he does say is, a faithless and adulterous generation seeks for a sign, and no sign will be given to them. I think it's so funny that Jesus did that, because it's like, why didn't he just show him a sign? He could have done it easily. Why does God sometimes just say, I'm not going to reveal myself to you? It's an interesting question. I think that the truth is that God wants us to seek him, and he will reveal himself to the people that are seeking him. And these Pharisees and Sadducees had the ability to seek Jesus and to find him. They had the ability to know that he was the Messiah just by opening up their hearts to the idea that could be true. So they go in a boat and go across the Sea of Galilee again, and Jesus is kind of stewing in the boat, and he says beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. He says this to his disciples. And his disciples are like, Jesus is mad because we forgot to pack bread. There's not enough bread for us all. And Jesus kind of gets upset with them and says, did you just see me feed 4,000 people? And a week earlier, didn't you see me feed 5,000 people? At least 5,000. It was probably more like 8,000 and 10,000 people, from 5 loaves and 2 fish, and from 7 loaves, and I forget exactly how many he fed the 4,000 with. Anyway, Jesus says, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. And they realize that he's not talking about bread at all, but he's talking about the teaching of the Pharisees. I think it's interesting that Jesus didn't say beware of the teaching of the Pharisees. That could have been a very easy way to not be misunderstood. But I don't think that's what Jesus was trying to say. It's more than just the teaching of the Pharisees. It's the thing in their teaching and in their thoughts that kind of grows. You know, it's the thing that permeates your mind. And what's wrong with it is that it's focused on this physical world. It's not focused on, you know, God and eternity. And so he's telling them, you know, beware of forgetting that before this life and after this life there's something, and outside of this world there is something. You know, beware of having a small mind. You know, don't get all blown up, you know, like leaven. Don't grow in these very minute ideas. So they go over to Caesarea Philippi, which is an area where a lot of pagan worship, and I guess they wouldn't have called it pagan worship, but before that it was named after Pan, and it was you know, recently named Caesarea Philippi. Philip was a son of Herod, and he had named this city after Caesar, so that's why it's called Caesarea Philippi. It's named after Herod's son and Caesar. Anyway, they go over there and he says, "Who do you guys say that I am?" And Peter, always the one to speak up first, says, "You're the Christ. You're the Son of God." Now, when he says you're the Son of God, you know, people would often address people as saying the Son of Man. It doesn't mean that you're less than man. It means that you're akin to man. When you say that you're the Son of God, it means that you are God. So Jesus looks at Peter and says, "This does not come by your own knowledge. You know, it's not you alone that came up with this. My Father, you know, God, revealed this to you." It's kind of saying, don't get a big head about knowing this, because it didn't come from you. It's interesting because in the next chapter, Jesus tells them that he is going to suffer and that he is going to die. And he speaks up to Peter, or Peter speaks up to him and says, "Not so, Lord, this can't be." And Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." So in one paragraph, he's like, "Oh, you're listening to God." And in the next paragraph, Jesus is saying, "You're listening to Satan." You know, in the same chapter, he is a representative of God, the creator of everything, and Satan, the adversary. I mentioned earlier that this is a very controversial passage. There's a lot of disagreement over what Jesus said after Peter said that he was the Christ, because Jesus said, you know, God has revealed this to you, and I will, and he's like, and your name is Peter. He's calling him Peter now for the first time. His name before was Simon. And he said, "And on this rock I will build my church." Peter is the diminutive form of rock. And when he said rock, you know, it's like he's saying, you know, you are pebble, and upon this boulder I'm going to build my church. And there's a lot of controversy over what exactly this means. I won't get into it, but Jesus, it does sound like Jesus is saying, you're going to be a very important part of my church, Peter, because of the proclamation that you just made, that I am the Son of God. After that, Jesus said something really interesting. He said, if anybody wants to wants to gain their life, if anybody wants to follow me really, they're going to have to take up their cross and follow me. It's interesting because Jesus nobody knew that he was going to be crucified at this point. So when he said, take up your cross and follow me, that really meant something to the people listening. They were picturing people going to the cross. You know, they would always, the crossbar. You would have to carry that to your own crucifixion. And he's saying, if you guys want to follow me, you can't follow the things of this world. You're going to have to live as though you're dying to yourself. You're going to have to not hold on to the things of this world, but take up your cross and follow me. He is kind of foreshadowing that he is going to die. So, very great chapter. That's Matthew chapter 16. All right, bye. Hey everybody, I'm here at work. I was just thinking about this chapter, and there was a song that came to mind. When my son was very young, my wife would sing this song that goes, turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and the things of this world will look strangely dim in the light of his mercy and grace. So I just kind of felt like that was a good summarization of this chapter. So I hope you liked it. Have a great day.